The chess drama continues as Magnus Carlsen ducks Hans Niemann again. This is the blitz portion of the Astana World Team Rapid. Magnus refusing to play, Nepo had to step in, and so that's why we're looking at Magnus with white against Arjun Erigaisi with black. But this is the finals. The winner of this game, their team won the whole event. But before we dive in, we must address the fact that I'm not shooting today from my cupboard under the stairs, Harry Potter-esque. I find myself in deepest, darkest British National Park, the oldest one in the UK if you can decipher that, and I've been saved by the blue tit Wi-Fi. Absolutely true story, that's what it's called. Password Apple Crumble, you can't make this stuff up. Hopefully it doesn't take 10 million years to upload. Magnus with white here, a game of epic proportions. Let's jump in. Blitz chess, clock times on the left. Let's find the keys here. Magnus kicks off with e4, best by test, and Arjun goes e6. Le Français defense, and he says very politely, "En garde, Magnus," in a French accent. Many top players starting to do that when they play the French, very combative opening. It's a warning to your opponent. Magnus takes the center. Arjun fights right back, and these are some of the most common moves for white here. It's the only source of comedy today, no fancy editing. I'm here in my haunted house, and Magnus doesn't go for any of them. He plays knight c3. He's been playing some main lines this tournament. This is the top move, invites the raise a sharp winnower variation, but Arjun ducks it and goes knight f6 here. Classical variation. Magnus goes e5, the Steinitz variation, named after Johann Wilhelm, first world champion of chess that is, not tiddlywinks. The knight drops back, both players completely forgetting which way they should be moving the horses, but the point is revealed. They both want to move the sea prawns. They're feeling hungry, center under fire, defended, and now all four horsemen of the apocalypse gallop into the game. But can you name them? Bishop e7, very natural, and now a3 from Magnus. Takes control of b4, anticipating an exchange here. Does he also want to push p one day? Who knows? We saw Ali Reza do that recently. Arjun doesn't want to find out. He plays a5, an ugly move. It's like the Niemann-Magnus relationship, just makes you wince. But he's obviously thinking about the b4 break, and look how he arranges the pieces on the queen side. Knows his stuff. But Magnus, not to be outdone, he pushes on with h4 now. This is modern chess. Arjun cracks on, clamping on the light squares, and now come on Magnus, go h5 for the fans. Or rook h3, another idea, but no. He sallies forth with the pony here, stacks them up on the f-file, opening his own stable, and now Arjun plays this great move of queen a5. Threat to take on d4, and you've pinned this c-pawn here. So what does Magnus do? Interrupts the pin. Arjun therefore drops back, so does Magnus. Arjun comes back, doing a little bit of tickle here. Magnus giggling away, but finally he has to put his armpits down and play a move that doesn't repeat the position. He wants to play for that win. So Arjun now takes on d4. Magnus recaptures. He's in chess nirvana. The lady's about to leave the board, but this bishop a bit ugly until that happens. Also staring at a knight. So what does Magnus do? Well, after knight b6, great move, eyeing the most explosive square on the board, c4, Magnus plays the only move really to keep advantage, knight h5. These are not obvious moves. This is a man who knows the position, knows the themes. Now, yes, you can castle, but Arjun was fearing an attack, as we're going to see. So he plays king f8, that one babysitting pawns, not happy. The lady's out on a night out, the king's stuck at home, dad not happy, and what does Magnus do? He says, do you even rook lift, bro? Brings that one into the attack, and now this move is deep. I found out about it by asking myself, what happens if you go bishop d7? Because Arjun plays h6, why? Well, this is the point. Rook g3 comes, pressure on g7, defending with the rook doesn't actually cut it. You can still crash through, then lop off the queens, then go bishop h6. Pin and win, baby. So g6 is played. Somehow that knight goes on the wackiest journey we're going to see. But the reason Arjun did this is if it was back here and the bishop was on d7, white could now swap the queens and go bishop h6, check. It's very uncomfortable without going down the whole line. Awesome stuff bubbling below the surface in these GM games. It's like an iceberg. We just see the tip. Magnus goes for the knight here. That was tip, not tit, even though I'm on the blue tip Wi-Fi. Can play with the language. And now we don't see takes on f6. You don't want to create that Swiss cheese on the light squares. Dark squares, sorry. So knight d7 played. It's an excellent retreating defensive move. Arjun's up to number 4 in the world now, classical chess, and all of it through tournaments that he wasn't invited to. He's a special player. And now Magnus, what does he do? He drops back with the knight here. There's the old adage, if you're the side with the more space, then keep pieces on the board. This is what Magnus plays for. h5 kicks that knight once more. You've got the V-wing light squared structure, works harmoniously with the dark squared bishop. This one crying though, and after knight e3, now knight b6 played. Stacking those ones up, looking here, preparing to develop. Now we see Magnus bring the knight all the way back to c2 just to complete the journey. Absolute madness, but he retains some small advantage, ever such a slight gain in space. Now we see this bishop come to d7, the clergymen reunited. We see captures on a5, knight recaptures, and I just realised I was talking rubbish. The game's about equal. Magnus was a bit better, but Arjun's done a great job of dissipating that advantage. His piece is now flowing forward, and after bishop g5, Magnus does complete his development, but rook c8, and Arjun is the first one to the threats. What does Magnus do? You would think he would move this knight now that he's developed the bishop, but no, he plays a provocative move. Castles queenside, whoa, straight into a pin, but the queens have left the board. He's not getting killed just yet. We see takes on g5 with check. Knight recaptures here and king e7. This was Arjun's point of swapping the bishops. He gets the bomb cloud, connect those rooks, very nice. Always play king b1, and now rook c7 prepares to stack the 2 towers, but Magnus interrupts with all his matter of fact. f7 caving in unless you cover with the rook. Played. Now we see bishop e2. Magnus sets up one of the most beautiful things in chess, a rook seesaw, and Arjun fights back by going knight b to c4. Look at these knights just hopping away like Kermit the Frog. Magnus takes one off. It's an absolute monster. And now the way to go here is recapturing with the rook if you want to keep an equilibrium. But it is not played. Arjun spices things up here by creating another c-pawn. And he's looking for this bishop c6 stuff and control of d5. It's a great idea, but there's a problem. Also pressure on d4, by the way, opening up some lines. What does Magnus do? He goes knight b4. Excuse me. And it should be noted the time's really getting low now. So bishop c6 played. The rook hit, there's this amazing d5 move, just to show you this, ed, and what do you recapture with? The rook. How about that for a move? Hitting the knight, and if captures, knight captures, check, and you win a rook. After the king recaptures, f7 then caves in. Awesome lines. So you can't actually capture, white stands a lot better. But okay, missed. Human chess, Magnus sees an attack, moves a rook, that's why it gets the question mark, and now surely you take here, win a valuable pawn, but no. f3, you're shutting the trap on that sniper, no way out, supported by this one, the rook's on the way to collect. So instead, we see rook d7, pressuring d4, but king c2 from Magnus. It's strategically busted for black. Arjun goes bishop d5, king c3, knight c6 is best, but he lashes out with b5, setting up the old camel toe. I don't have my graphic today to show you a camel's toe, the 3-pronged foot. We're in too much of a rush here, and now we get f3. on the board. I say rush, it's my birthday tomorrow. Best not annoy the wife too much, staying up all night making chess videos. Magnus now going for this pawn advance on the king side, and Arjun plays one of the ugliest knight moves with bringing this one back to b7, reminiscent of that ugly knight that Shirov once had against Kasparov in that legendary rook sacrifice game. Now g4 played, Magnus banging on the door with Gary the debt collector. The knight hops back to d8. What are you doing back here? Dad ashamed, and now takes on h5. Pawn recaptures and rook h6. Magnus preparing to gobble. He has allowed f6 here. Nice counterplay shot if Arjun finds it, but he doesn't. He collapses like a house of cards with king to e8. And the big problem here is when Magnus hops, of course he finds the best move, hits the rook, you can't save the exchange. Because if you go here, then the knight still comes to f6 with check, picks up a rook. If you go here, still the knight checks, and this time you pick up the rook like this. In that line, you're getting kebabbed, mate in 4. So instead, Arjun just takes a pawn, hits a rook. Magnus sidesteps, counters, bishop g4, Magnus collects, king recaptures, and bang, he's in behind enemy lines after this sequence of moves. Knight b7, one of the ugliest knights you've ever seen. It's just thrashing in the death knells. Now we see knight c6 played, bishop f5, Magnus checks, he's low on the clock, gaining back a bit of time, and now he goes rook e7, offering the exchange, which is unavoidable. These ones leave the board, knight recaptures, bishop under fire, saved, king b4, pawn hit, and after this one's attacked, saved, Arjun now comes all the way back to d8. Pogo sticking horribly. Now we see rook e7, or f2 rather. This one comes here with check, and Magnus doesn't take on b5 and allow this counterplay. King c5, the classy professional move. Kick back the horsey. These ones come off the board, and Arjun simply resigns. Yes, you can capture, but your entire queen side is collapsing, not to mention you're in exchange ahead. Magnus takes this game, but Arjun did win another one in this final, to his credit. But overall, WR Chess take home the victory in the blitz portion, even though they were third in the rapid play. Congrats to them. Hope you enjoyed. Smash subscribe if you did. And for another epic Magnus game from this tournament, check out the video on the screen. Cheers.